Hi, this is Kathleen from Sunny Mountain Patterns. I'm going to show you how to make a grow with me bottoms and tops and one for a jumpsuit. So this is my Etsy shop, just shameless plug here. My editing software is broken, so I'm having to do it this way instead of having the fancy schmancy intro and outro. So I'm going to use the Shady jumpsuit coverall pattern because it will be suitable for top, bottoms, and jumpsuits or rompers type of adjustment. So we're going to open Inkscape. Mind you, this is the slightly older version, so if you have a newer version, it might look a little different. We're going to go to File, and Import. We want to import the file. I'm going to use my projector version just so it's easier to see. You can use an A0 or one that's already been stitched together. Don't do the one that's tiled because you're going to have to do a lot of work. So we're going to open that and just say okay. That's what it's going to look like. So mind you, I include a black layer for contrast for people who like to have the contrast. Let me just move this and you can get rid of that. But once this all imports, I do in layers, so you're gonna have to ungroup everything. The sizes will be grouped together as for each size. So the 6T will be grouped with all of the other pieces. We're gonna ungroup this as usual. So you can go click on the pattern piece, go to Object, and go to Ungroup or Shift-Control-G. That doesn't always work for me. Give it a second. You can see all these dashed lines. That just indicates that it's ungrouped all of the sections. I'm gonna zoom out. So you can go to the lower left where you can't see because my face is blocking it, or you can hold down the Alt button and scroll towards you. Oh, sorry, Control and scroll towards you. That's the whole page. So I'm just going to click on one of the black areas. I want to delete that because I don't need it. It's going to be distracting. Secondary, I'm going to change that little tiny page right here, this square, to something bigger so that when it prints as a PDF, I know it will fit. So go to File, Document Properties, and change the size. We're going to change it into inches. So 200 inches is the biggest you can do it for a PDF. For Adobe to read it, don't make it any bigger. You can also use 200 centimeters, that will work. And then just close. Or you can select A0, that also works really well. So I just grab the size 6. I'm going to zoom in. So this is, I have it color coded by sizes and it's nested, so you can grab whatever size you want. I'm going to grab size 6T just because that's the easiest one to grab. You'll notice that they're all grouped together. This is because I have put my patterns in layers. So if you don't have these inside layers, they're all going to still be grouped together as a big bunch, and I'm sorry. But I try to layer these. That's a feature you can only do if you do designs in Illustrator, just so you know. So these are still grouped together. I don't want these pieces together. I want to break them apart. So I'm going to ungroup again. Shift-Control-G. No, I always mess this up. I just go to Object, Ungroup. And you should see the dashed lines around everything. Then these are all separate pieces. I don't know why that's so thin. So here we've got, I'm just gonna do let's go with the top first. So here I've got the front, and then I have the back, which I have mirrored, and then, you know, the bottoms and the top. I moved it away. It's normally labeled, not layered. So for a grow with me, say this is the top. You normally want to have, say this, we're only working on a bodice, so top, not a romper just yet. You want to have a larger roll down cuff, as it were, a waistband that can roll down as your child grows. Normally I've noticed that, especially for my kid, he tends to grow taller than he does wide. Now, not everybody has this case. That's okay. It happens. But we're just going to discuss the tallness issue, not so much the diameter issue, because that's a little more complicated. So the easy way to do this is to get a square and just do this. Done. Add and set this as a cuff, or not a cuff, a waistband to attach to your bodice. Now you want to be double the width that you actually want it, so that you can essentially fold this way. Hello. You have the fabric here and you want to fold it in half. Let me see if I have a piece of paper. So, sorry, this had stuff on it. So here's your waistband. You want it to be double the width. So when you sew it, you fold it in half, and then you attach the part that's not folded onto the garment, so that when they're wearing it, you can fold it up for when they're smaller, and then when they start getting bigger, start folding it down. The recommendation is to use rib knit or to put elastic in it. This will work even if you have base material that is woven, like cotton or linen. Trust me, it will work. I've done it. So we want to just have the same width here. Now you have to do the same thing for the back. So we're going to go to the back. Before we move on, let me show you how to set the height so that we know how high it is. When you're clicking on the rectangle, you'll notice that up here, there's heights. It's in millimeters right now because I have it set to millimeters, but we can go ahead and change to inches by just clicking the arrow down button and clicking on inches. So this height will be approximately 2.5 inches when it's folded in half, minus seam allowance. So remember, if you have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, when you fold it in half, you're actually taking up 1 inch total. So it's going to be 2 inches tall. So if you want a little bit longer, which I suggest probably if you're, especially in the older sizes, probably make it 3 inches or longer. Don't make it ridiculously long, like 10 inches, too long. You can just change the height here. So say we wanted to end up with a 3-inch cuff, as it were. You would need 3 inches times 2, that's 6 inches total, because you're going to fold it, right? Plus seam allowance. So if your seam allowance is a 1/2 inch, you add a total of 1 inch to the total height. So we're going to do 7 inches tall. Now we're going to move on to the back. Mind you, my seam allowances are not 1/2 inch, so if you're making my garments, don't use a 1/2 inch seam allowance unless you want it to be kind of tight. So for the back, we're going to do the whole width, or you can do cut and fold. It's your preference. We're going to do the same thing. Actually, we're going to cheat a little bit. Instead of making another square, we're going to grab this, press Control C to copy, or I think it's edit, copy here. Go down to where our back of the bodice is, Control V, it'll paste wherever your mouse is. So if your mouse is over to the right, it's gonna paste there. And then we're gonna go towards where the bodice is. I have snap to point, or enable snapping on, which is on the right hand side. That's very useful because now I don't have to guesstimate, I'll just go to where I need it to be. And now it's not actually doing it. So I'm stretching the entire width. So if you have a garment that is not a button front like mine is, you can combine these and just make it one long tube. And that's pretty easy just by putting these together, and then let's just cut that. Oh, my bad. I didn't want to cut. I want to copy. So if you had a stretch fabric where it was all one piece, the front was a half and the back was a half, and you don't have any type of buttons in the front, we can combine these two now that we have the lengths quite easily. So the easiest way to do that is to combine the two and then just make another rectangle over it and then delete the two that are inside. So you can make your indications by putting these, by grabbing the Bezier pen. Let's redo that. I'm going to zoom in. Grab the Bezier pen. Hold Control down if you want it to be perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical. Hold Control as you're clicking. And then press Enter when you're done. we can make arrows here. It's pretty easy. You just go to Object, Fill and Stroke. We want to go to Stroke Style and Markers. So we want arrows at the beginning and arrows at the end. The middle will just change what it looks like in the middle. I'm just bulking this up so it's easier to see. I would go with points. Let's just do 5 points. Okay, so that's how you make your indication for cut and centerfold, right? So after you have this, if you're whether your pieces are together or not, if you have a flat type of waistline, you can do this. If you have a curved waistline, so let me just make a second one so I don't mess this up. Sorry, I was using. So say you have a curved waistline here, like that. And you want to preserve the curved waistline. Okay, that's gonna be a little hard. In which case, if that's the case, I would not actually add on a roll down, just because it's not gonna roll down very nicely. This curve is gonna throw off how it fits. So you have two choices here. You can either, first off, try to square this off. And do the same technique as I did, just with the squared off portion like that, and have this green line, which if you're colorblind, I apologize, this line right here, as your waistline now. But if you like to preserve it, what I suggest, and I have had this work before for a jumpsuit, is go ahead and lay out how much extra you want. So say you want 3 extra inches of growth room. Make a rectangle. This is just as a guideline because it's easier than doing everything else. Click on it and say 3 inches for the height. We're going to align this with the bottom corner. And then what we're going to do is you want to go to the nodes, edit path by nodes. We're going to click on the lowest path and hold shift and click on the other lowest path. And we're going to click and drag it down until it matches up with the 3 inches to lengthen this. Because I suggest putting ruching from basically here to here with elastic in it. So you can actually measure out double wide bias tape and put it on the inside of the side seam once you've completed the side seam, and then string elastic from here to here, half the width. So I would make a note and say, half inch, hello, if I could type. You basically want half the length of the bias tape, and then you can set. This is bias tape guide. It doesn't really matter how long it is. You just want a little bit of ruching to pull it in, and then as they grow longer, the ruching can stretch. So that's actually a strategy we're going to use when it's a jumpsuit, and it works quite well. But moving on. So say you have some long sleeves that you want to be able to make longer. It's pretty much the same thing. Let me just move this. We're going to do a cuff again, but notice that this is slightly angled, so you can't make a straight cuff. It's not going to fit well unless you use unless you're using already rib knit, which can stretch, in which case doing the rectangle to match up with the wrist opening is fine, and then setting the height to be whatever height you want. For cuffs, probably 2 inches is good. I mean, I don't know, it depends on how fast your kids grow. If they're beanpoles, you might want to add more. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste, Control C, and then Control V, these pieces. I'm just going to work on one side for now. I'm just going to, it should be a cut and fold type of thing. So we want to copy this angle. The easiest way of doing this is to grab a rectangle, cut away the section we don't need. So remember how I use the guide. I'm just lazy because I don't want to move things. You of course can use the move object. So just make a little guide, a rectangle you can delete later. Pretend this is your ruler almost. So say I want 3 inches. I'm actually going to set it at 3 inches. 3 inches plus seam allowance, so 3.5 inches. So half a seam out. I'm only using half inch because that's easier for me for math, okay? So we're going to align these two. And then I'm going to have this rectangle come basically right down there. Make it big enough to encompass the whole thing. We don't need this anymore. We can delete that. So we're going to actually click and highlight everything and go to path. We're going to do difference or a control minus. Oh, this is one of the objects that's not a path. Okay. So when you make an object, like a rectangle or circle, it's not going to be a path where you click on the path nodes. It's only going to have 2 locations. You need these square nodes, not the circular nodes. I can't zoom in on it. It's going to stay the same size. You need the square nodes on all 4 corners. Easy way to fix this. You go to path and object to path because it's an object. We want to make it a path, meaning it now has 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes and it's highlighted red. Now we can go ahead and do this manipulation. So we go highlight at both of them. It says 2 objects selected of type paths. Yeah, grammar's not great here. Path, and we're going to go to difference. Are you kidding me? Okay, maybe that's an object. Try that again. Okay, no, that's good. Yep. Let's try this again. It totally is a path. I'm getting it. That's a path. It says path, 8 nodes in layer 1. Okay. It says group. Oh. It's group, that's why. We'll ungroup this. See what happens. Object, ungroup. There. I don't know why it was grouped, but we had to ungroup it. Sometimes it's frustrating. Now let's try this. Please work. There we go. Difference. So I'm going to Control Z to undo and I'll show you what I did. So I made sure that everything here, now it says path, 6 nodes in layer 1, not group. That's the problem solving hint. So I'm highlighting all of this. I'm going to path. I'm going to difference. So it's going to delete everything that's overlaying the bottom layer, which is going to be my black or my sleeve. And all we're left is with this cuff. So normally the cuff will attach here and we want to be able to fold it. Sorry. It would attach here, right? And you would fold down. So if I horizontal this, vertical it, sorry. When you sewed, it would sew here and then you would fold this up. But we want it to be a nice, smooth, finished look. So we're actually going to, this is the original, we're going to copy and paste this, Control C and then Control V. And then we want this to be reflected, so press V, which is vertical flip, you see how it points the other way, and put these together. So this is going to be your total cuff when you cut it out. We can combine these two by highlighting and going to Path and Union, and now the lines are removed. So when we sew it, we fold it in half. See my fancy paper towel? Everything's packed, sorry. Fold it in half and then sew it to the, use my sleeve, sew it to the sleeve. Like so. And then and then you can flip it over, like this. If you're using woven, you're gonna want to make a Oh no, that's not right. I'm so sorry. There. That's what you want to combine. The small part is what you fold over and sew to. So we can union this, but Control plus, that's it. So the fold is here. We can put a dash line if you like. Oh, how convenient, I already knew I wanted. Okay, so you can make this dashed if you like, to show it's a fold, to remember. But what you can do is also add in casing. When you fold it in half, it'll just be on one side. Ugh, that's abysmal. Can't see that at all. So I'm gonna zoom in. You can see where we would write casing here. And I would put in elastic in this casing. This is of course cut and fold. So if you've already made the cut and fold, I would just Control Z and then Control V it so you don't have to make it again. And you can make your notes by typing in the text to say you want to cut 2, if you remember, good for you. So at this point, we're ready to do the bottom cuff. It is exactly the same. What happened there? I don't know what that is. Let's pretend that didn't exist. I think I have 2 layers. So we're going to do the same thing for the bottom cuff. Except this is at an angle because of the way the pants are done. The easiest way, I think, is to set up a Bezier pen and just click on these 2 points and press enter, and then use the selection tool F1 to grab this. We're gonna zoom in, click it one more time until the rotation comes up. Move the center point, which is the crosshair. It doesn't matter which side corner you put in, but put it all the way in the corner, and then grab the rotation, these curvies. Don't do this, it'll throw it off. That's not what we want. We want this to rotate it down until it's practically flat. I'm gonna make this a little thicker so it's easier to see. Now we can use this as a guide for the cuff. And then change the height up here. And you can clean this up by deleting this. But that, if you notice, theoretically when you rotate it should be the right height. If it's not exactly the right width and you use rib knitting, no problem, you just stretch it a little bit. But if you're using woven, you do need it to be pretty close, just because it won't stretch that much, right? The same thing with the cuff for the sleeve. You can put in indications for the fold, which I'm gonna copy this, put in here, Control V, and then either rotate it or just press H. No, V, duh. V, H. Okay, here. Click it again and then rotate, hold Control, it'll constrain it to 45 and 90. And then just have this as a fold. You can double this up so it goes around all the way in a nice seam. You don't have an extra seam, whatever you choose. So now let's pretend this is the front and the back for a jumpsuit. The thing with the jumpsuit is it's not just having to worry about the cuffs and the pant leg cuff, the arm cuffs and the pant leg cuff. It's the growth of the torso, right? I just put my 5-year-old in a 24-month and it fits him this way. It's just, he's got a crop top. So to avoid the crop top, remember how for the front I said the other option is to make it longer? Let's go ahead and do that. But you want to do it for both sides if you're going to mirror it. So let's just grab one side. And you do not want to go do this, where you grab the corner and grab it, because notice how the arm side and the neck is getting longer. That's going to throw everything off for how your sleeve fits. So what we need to do is go and use the Edit Pass by Note, which now you want to you can click and highlight or press Shift while you're clicking and grab only that section. And you can hold Control if you want. If you want to know exactly how much you're adding on, go ahead and make a guideline with your square or your rectangle. So we're just going to add probably about 3 inches for the bigger kids, just because they tend to grow really fast. And the same idea here is you want to put in ruching. And you can make yourself a note on the side. Everything else stays the same. So the ruching will pull in, but it will allow them to grow to get taller and still have, the growth. But you can't obviously put on any fold down on the bottom because it's a romper. It doesn't have a free flopping end. There's other ways to do it with some complicated flopping down and zippers and buttons to keep things together, but I think ruching is probably the easiest way to fit kids. So that's my solutions. Once you have this down, you can label all the pieces. I have this within the confines of my large 200 by 200 inch page, or go ahead and use centimeters if you like. It should fit perfectly. Label these pieces, save your SVG so you can change it if you need to, and then go to File, Save As, and we're going to label it and save as PDF. Sorry, I'm going to delete this, so I don't care if it's wrong. And just say okay to whatever. I'm going to say cancel because I don't want to actually make one. And then you can use this as you like. If you prefer to have a calibration square, you can just easily make one in the upper left-hand corner by grabbing the rectangle maker and then click onto it and then just change the size. I use 12 by 12 often to double check. You can use whatever size you prefer. Just make sure that it's nice and thick points. Yeah, there we go. And you also remind yourself what it is, because if you try to calibrate it and you forgot it was 12 by 12 and you're using 10 by 10 and you're going, oh my God, this isn't fitting, you're going to have a problem. So just label that too. So please note that Inkscape does not save layers. So if you have different sizes, you're either going to have to save separate PDFs for each, or just be cognizant of the fact that it's going to be together in one piece. That's a feature that only Illustrator has. It's pretty exclusive to Illustrator because it's an Adobe function for PDFs. But other than that, you can go ahead and print this out. Use this, of course, for your own private. If you're using somebody else's patterns, of course, use this only for personal use. Don't make another pattern and sell it. That's just, I think, illegal. Not legal advice here. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this works out for you. Again, I used the field, I used to call it field, the Shady harem jumpsuit. It's a coveralls, but you can also use this for rompers to make the cuffs longer for the bottoms and the sleeves. So I hope that helped. Thanks again. This is Kathleen from Sunny Mountain Patterns.